Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Amy Waddle. I am a mental health advocate and suicide prevention trainer who's been doing a lot of work around having a conversation with someone that you care about who might be struggling with their mental health. So I went ahead and put together an action plan called ALEC. It stands for Ask, Listen, Encourage, and Connect. And this action plan is very simple to follow, really easy to learn, and this will help support you in having those conversations that might be uncomfortable or difficult, especially if you're not used to talking about mental health. So in my work as a prevention trainer and also living with a mental health condition, I've learned that we don't always know what's going on under the surface in someone's life. We don't know if something's changed for them. So we really need to begin observing how they're doing. And we normally can tell if something's different about somebody that we're close to, right? Our friend or our family member. They could be showing some signs or clues. Their self-care might change, their hygiene, their energy level. Oftentimes they start spending more time by themselves. We call this isolation. They could be more uninterested in stuff that they used to be interested in, or they're moody, more emotional. And I look at this list and I say, well, this sort of looks a little like typical adolescence. If you think about it, there are a ton of changes going on in the body, and you're figuring out how to take care of yourself. And maybe your energy level is lower or higher than it used to be because you're growing. Maybe you want to spend time, by yourself because you really need that to refuel. But I look at what impact is it having on that person's life. Are they able to go out and do the things they used to do? Are they able to continue in the relationships that they really need to thrive? And when I observe something in a friend or loved one that makes me go, I wonder if something might be going on, I think I'm going to check in. That is where the ALEC action plan fits in to all of this. How to have that conversation if you observe something, a sign or a clue. That's if there's been a big change in someone's life that you can see, like a loss of a loved one or a divorce. Maybe it could be a natural disaster or a health crisis like we're having right now in our country. So there are things that can happen in life that really rock our world, right? And there are ways to get through those situations. And we can become sad, which is part of our normal human experience. But we can typically come out of that with some support. But when we're struggling with our mental health, we can't just pull ourselves back out of it because mental health conditions, they don't work that way. They're a disease inside the brain. So we can have changes in our mental health and people can't see that. I have bipolar 2 disorder. And it's really hard for people to understand because they can't see my illness. But it's very much real in my life. So if you don't know if something bad has happened in their life and you're suspecting it might be their mental health, this is how to start the conversation. We're going to explore some basic signs in our environment. To start, what does this sign mean? Behind that door is the bathroom. Everybody knows that sign. It's the most simple sign in our environment. What about this sign? What does that sign mean? It says shallow water, but what it's showing us is diving head first. You could hit your head, break your neck, and there's a ton of things that might happen to you because of that. So I look at this small sign, and in 1 to 2 seconds, it gives me a lot of information. How about this sign? What does that sign mean? Deer crossing. But what does it want you to do? It wants you to slow down, pay attention. Deer in particular are not smart animals, and they're more likely to run into you than you running into them. So this sign just shows a tiny picture, but a lot of information. How about this sign? No food or drink. We all know this. But do we always listen to this one? No. I actually have something called a movie purse. That's right. I go to the Rite Aid or the dollar store and I load up on all of my cheap candy and take that to the movies. I know I shouldn't, but that's just the one thing that I have a bad habit of doing. Yes, we know what that sign means, but we don't always listen to it. Now, let's take a look at a different type of sign. What do these signs mean? Bored. Happy. However, is there a possibility that they could be faking it? That's right, they could be. They could be putting on that mask of, yeah, everything's okay, right? I'm good. Have you ever asked someone, hey, are you okay? And they go, oh, yeah, I'm fine. And you know that they're lying. I did this for a really long time. I put on this mask that everything was okay in my life. Even when I was severely depressed, I put on a smile. And I did this for so long, so many years, that I forgot who was behind that mask. I forgot where all this pain was coming from, and it pushed away the people that cared about me most. So I hope this is a happy time. And yeah, there's so many moments in life that are full of joy and laughter. But there are those moments when we're tempted to put on a mask and say, yeah, everything's fine. When really what we need most is human connection and support. Now, what does that sign mean? Does his body language say, hey, come on over and hang out with me? No. Most likely, he wants to be left alone. He's sad, depressed, something's going on. Okay, what about this sign? Tears. And tears could be from anything though, right? It could be Taco Tuesday and you're chopping onions. The wind blew out really cold in your face. Or you're laughing so hard you cried, right? Have you ever done that? How about angry tears? There are angry tears too. There are sad tears. So something about tears and emotions go together. All right, now what does this sign mean? Yeah, to me, he looks a little like Wreck-It Ralph. He has huge hands and an angry grin there, so he most likely is pretty frustrated. So, signs are important. We read people's body language and their facial expressions, and we know this might be a good time to use our ALEC action plan to check in. The first step is to ask. It is okay to plan ahead for this conversation. Have you ever planned ahead for a conversation before? I know I have. With people that are really close to me and I know their moods, I'll plan ahead of when's the best time to ask for something, like if they're really happy. And remember, this conversation, it is about them, where they would feel most comfortable. So you want to be prepared ahead of time and be ready to know the questions you're going to ask and maybe how you would respond to their questions. Have a hotline number in your contacts. It's really important. If you know how to call 911, then you need to know how to call a hotline. It's that simple. So it's okay to plan ahead. This conversation's going to be about them, not you. Add that hotline number to your contacts. Next part is, where is the best place to ask? Pick a place where they would feel most comfortable. So this could be their house, your house, the park, a bench at school, wherever you think they would be most comfortable. And lastly, you can have a friend or loved one there for added support only if the person you're helping is okay with it. So you have to know 100% if the person will be okay with having them there. So that is the ask step. There's something really important you need to have with you in this step, and it's something called empathy. Empathy is a powerful way of connecting with someone, and you don't need to know or to have their story and understand everything that's going on to show that person empathy. Empathy is saying, I'm here with you. I care about you. I want you to know you're not alone. And oftentimes we try to rush in and give advice and fix things when really we just need to know that someone is there. Now, when we talk about expressing our concern, there are a few ways to do this without making the person feel bad or blamed for how they're feeling and assuming that they're choosing to feel this way. Earlier, I talked about depression and how depression isn't a choice. It's not something you can snap out of. So we don't want to make them feel worse than they already are. I've had students come up to me and ask me, I have a friend, I know they're struggling, but I just don't know what to say. So I encourage you to use something that's called an I statement. An I statement is a way for you to share how you feel, what you observe, and what you don't want to happen to your friend or loved one. So for example, if I was worried about my sister because she hasn't been leaving her room, last time I did see her, she had a cut on her arm, and I heard she texted a friend, you're not going to have to worry about me much longer. So I am really worried and scared for my sister. So if I want to start my I statement, I would say, I feel worried, or I feel scared. Those are my emotions. And she's less likely to think that I'm blaming her for that. And then I want to tell her like what I'm seeing happening. So I would say, I feel worried or scared when I see my observations are she's not leaving her room, she's cutting herself, and the text message she sent her friend. So I would share that. I would say, I'm seeing you not leave your room, you're cutting yourself, and somebody told me that you sent that text and we're really concerned. And lastly, because I filled in, I don't want anything to happen to you, but this could be anything that comes to your mind. So if this is someone that you really cared about or loved, what would you not want to see happen? You probably don't want to lose them, right? Or something bad to happen. Some students share that they don't want to lose them because they're their close friend and that they matter. So the full I statement would be, I feel scared or worried when I see you're not leaving your room, cutting yourself and sending those texts because you're my sister and I don't want anything to happen to you. That is a phrase to express concern for her without making her feel judged. What's really cool about an I statement is it's just a fill in the blank phrase that you can use for any situation. Now, putting the ball in their court is really important so that you can wait for a response, right? So if you share your observation, you might want to say like, are you okay? Are you struggling right now? What do you need from me? How can I help? That leads you to the next step, listen. How many of you think you're a good listener? I know I'm a good listener, but I struggle with something called fixing. Maybe it comes with being a parent. But let's back up and talk about how listening is an active thing that you do. We actually show people we're listening. We take in 80% of our communication through our eyes. So when we're listening to someone, we want to make frequent eye contact so that they see that we're fully present with them. Sit up, face that person if at all possible. Now, have you ever had a conversation with someone? You're trying to talk to them. They're all slouched in their chair. Their arms are across their chest, and they're just kind of staring off into space. Well, what is their body saying? I don't care, right? It's saying, I really don't care. I'm not really in the room right now with you. But what if we looked at each other, really looked and faced one another and heard one another? So when we do this, when we sit with someone, especially without our cell phone in the way, we're creating what's called space for them to feel heard. And when we feel heard, that's when we start to heal. And that's the gift that we want to give the person we care about, and we give it through the listening step. Make frequent eye contact. Put your cell phone away, and do not give advice or try to fix. This is so much harder than we realize. Rarely does a response make something better. So, say for example, I have a really bad day, which has happened before, of course. And I got up late because I snoozed my alarm too many times. I missed my exit on the highway, so I had to go to a different Starbucks that has a longer drive-through line. And then when I got to my office, I locked my keys in my car, so I couldn't get into the building. And I had to call my supervisor, and from there on, the day just went downhill. Now, if I had that kind of day and I walked home, the first thing I want to do is vent. What if after I vented, the person I'm telling says, well, you should have left earlier. Oh, no, they didn't. I didn't really need a solution. I already know I should have left earlier. What I needed was them to listen and not give advice, because honestly, we don't have the power to fix someone else's pain or fix their situation. Only they do. What they need from us is to listen, to create that space for them. Another example would be when my daughter was in 5th grade and she came from school, and she said, she drops her backpack and I can just see in her body language something happened. And she says, Mom, so-and-so, they said this to me. And she shared with me what that so-called friend said. And something in that moment transformed inside of me. And I go, oh, no, they didn't. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to go to that school. I'm going to fix that kid. And of course, my daughter's like, oh, that's why I don't tell my mom. Right? And I can't help it. I have mama bear syndrome. Many of you might relate to, your parents might have that overprotectiveness. But in that moment, when my daughter came home and she shared with me what that so-called friend said, did she really need me to fix that in that moment? No. What she needed was empathy, to feel heard, and to hear something like, man, that must have been really hard to hear from a so-called friend. So listening is one of the most important parts of this action plan. Next, encourage. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with someone who was supposed to encourage you but had the opposite effect? I know I have. Have you ever heard someone say, well, if I were you, I would? Or it could be worse. Or maybe they say, well, at least, I've been through worse and I got through it. I really think they're meaning well here, and they're trying to tell you that it's happened to them and they were able to get past it, and that's a good thing. But who is this comment about? It's about them. And this conversation is not about them. It's about the person they're helping. Or maybe you've heard, maybe you're just being too sensitive. Maybe it's not as big of a deal as you're making it. Maybe this is you just overreacting. And when we hear those things, it's hurtful because those things are invalidating how we feel. See, here's the thing. We get to decide if something hurts us, not them. They don't get to decide that for us. So when they're saying, well, maybe you're just being inside your mind, you can say, no, I disagree. All right. Now, what is encouraging? What kind of things sound encouraging? Something like, I want you to know you mean a lot to me. I want you to know your feelings matter. We're going to get through this. I want you to know you're stronger than you realize. A lot of times we just need someone to remind us of who we are, that we mean something, that our feelings matter, that we're not invisible, we're not alone. We're going to get through this. It's so powerful because that first word is not you are going to get through it, but we. Changes the message, doesn't it? We're going to get through this as saying, I'm not going anywhere. I care about you. So encouragement is the one gift. It's that gift you can give them right after you've listened. You don't need to fix. You don't need to give advice. And these aren't the exact phrases you have to use. This is just something to get you started. But you may come up with other things on your own, and that's totally okay. So you've expressed your concern using an I statement. You've given them an invitation to share something with you. You've listened intently and offered encouragement. Now, if you're here in this moment and they say, yeah, thank you so much for this talk, and you're trying to help them, connect them, which is the next step, and they say, oh no, that's okay. I don't need your help. That's a tough one. So let's talk about connection. How can we connect a friend or loved one to the resources they need? You don't need to be a trained counselor to help someone in a mental health crisis. In the ALEC action plan, your role is to connect them to the resources they need for support. Usually, there are two roadblocks that we come into contact with when trying to connect someone. The first one is they want you to promise not to tell anyone. If you've ever been in this situation, I can't imagine what that must have been like. It's so important to realize that in that moment, if it's a safety issue, if you see them hurting themselves, or you even suspect they're hurting themselves, or they're being hurt, it's important you tell someone as soon as possible, because their life is more important than your friendship. Because you can fix a friendship, but you can't bring someone back. Tell a trusted adult as soon as possible. Call your hotline, talk to a parent, tell a teacher, someone, and they'll take it from there. Or, what if they don't want my help? As I mentioned before, what if you're having this conversation, they've shared some stuff, and you're like, yeah, well, I want to make sure you're okay, so, let's connect to this text line. They're like, no, it's okay. I'm good. Well, you could say something like, I'll be here if you change your mind. But if it's a safety issue, do you think you should tell someone as soon as possible? That's right. We can't keep that kind of secret. And we know if it's a safety issue, that means it's an emergency. But if it's not a safety issue, say we don't have any proof or even a hint of concern that they're cutting or hurting themselves in some way, they're not talking about ending their life, they just don't seem like themselves lately. You can say, all right, cool, but I'm here if you change your mind. That sends a powerful message. It says, I'm going to be here when you're ready, and it's okay if you're not ready right now. So that is a great way to end that conversation. If it's not a crisis situation, you can leave it with, I'll be here if you change your mind. Or let's call the text line together. You might have them say, yeah, let's do it. I want help. I don't want to go through this anymore alone. So if you have your resource plugged into your phone or have your hotline card in your wallet, you can sit down together and either text or call or talk to a trusted adult together. You can be there for them as long as they need you. And that helps grow connection. So where can we connect? So places to connect, whether you're at school or not at school. I know sometimes we feel like we live at school, but we really don't. So at school, you can encourage them to tell a friend, or maybe this is you and you're the one who's struggling. You can start by telling a friend, hey, I just want you to know I'm struggling right now. I'm not okay. And sometimes just telling someone makes the burden a little lighter. So you could connect to a friend. You could also connect to a teacher. Some students have a teacher or two that they're really close to, that they would hang out with outside of school. So teachers are a great resource for extra support. Now, you might not really connect with any of your teachers, and that's okay. Maybe they're not your trusted adult on campus. Maybe it's your guidance counselor. If you know your guidance counselor, you've talked to them before and you felt comfortable, you can always go to them. Or I've heard that, well, last time I went, they made me feel bad or judged. So I encourage them to find someone else. Is it a librarian, a secretary? Could be the coach, the assistant coach at school, the janitor. Someone on campus that you feel comfortable talking to. To be honest, there are a lot of students that say, I don't want to talk to anyone at school. And for you, I say, that's okay. If you don't feel comfortable, then that's not the place to reach out. There's somewhere else to reach out. Who to talk to 24/7. So maybe you do have a parent, or they have a parent in their life that they feel comfortable with. Maybe it's a guardian. Or you can't talk to anyone for whatever reason, and you prefer to talk to someone you don't know. So I encourage you to call SLOW Hotline at 1-800-783-0607. It's written on the back of a lot of your student ID cards. Posters are around campus. And you can always log on to Transitions Mental Health Association's website for more resources. There's also a text line you can use. You can text home to 741-741, and a crisis worker will text you back, and you can talk that way. I know for me, I do a lot of conversations through text, and I feel sometimes more comfortable with those. So if that's you, please utilize that resource. There's also a resource for teens that it's a teens helping teens. So when you contact them, it'll be another teen who's been through a lot of things that they want to now help others. So Teen Line Online is a resource that, again, teens, supporting teens, and that is a great place to turn, especially if you prefer talking to someone your own age. There's always a place to connect, and I know it's scary, and I know if you've never done this before, if you've never had to support someone like this, the first time it will be, and you might not feel like you're doing it right. But I want you to know there's no perfect way to help someone. And you just being there and even asking and listening is making a huge difference, a difference you might never see. So I encourage you to always have your resources accessible to you, whether in your phone or in your backpack. Always reach out for support for yourself as well, because you are important and you matter just as much as the person that's hurting and you're helping. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot about this plan and how to use it in your relationships. And take care.